So, Bill, please introduce yourself and your company and where you're calling from today.
Yeah, so I am Bill Driegert, the EVP of Convoy Platform at DAT. I'm calling from Tiburon, California, which is just north of San Francisco if you go over the Golden Gate and keep going a little bit. And I've been in this freight industry since 2006 when I came on as fourth employee at Coyote Logistics. And most of my career has been focused on like technology and brokerage and operations and trucking all coming together.
Yep. So tell us, what is DAT and what is Convoy Platform? And tell us about that. I mean, I think everybody who's listening says, of course, I know what DAT is, and I also know about Convoy, but what is Convoy Platform and what is DAT? What do they do and who do they serve?
Yeah, DAT is a technology company that primarily serves brokerages and carriers. And the product for which they are most known is the marketplace, the load board. Almost penetration is pretty high across the market. So most carriers and most brokers, if I'm a broker and I need to find a new carrier and source capacity, I can post my load and I get inbounds from carriers, or I can book it directly through the platform. And conversely, carriers go to DAT1 to find freight from brokers and some shippers that post on as well. But primarily it's a broker and carrier marketplace. And DAT also has incredible rate data. So we have products around rates and rate IQ and a whole suite of capabilities around that as well.
Yep. And so what is Convoy Platform?
Yeah. Convoy Platform is the technology platform that came out of Convoy. So the Convoy story is Convoy was founded in 2015, was part of the huge wave of VC investment that came around that time, competed heavily against Uber Freight, which of course I'm very familiar with because I founded that, was going head to head with Convoy. So Convoy and Uber Freight really defined what became known as the digital freight marketplaces or DFM providers, or digital freight matching, as people would call it. Those companies really brought to market what ultimately became an app-centric way of doing business for carriers. Where it really shifted the market was with owner-operators and small carriers who all of a sudden could download an app, hit a button, book a load, change their whole way of going to market. And what ultimately happened, though, is Uber Freight made some acquisitions, acquired Transplace, became a very different company. Convoy, unfortunately, wound down in October of 2023, after having had $1 billion in investment in building this platform out. And I think there's a lot of reasons and stories around why that happened. But I think a big part of it is for that, it was a tech company with incredible investment in tech. But to support that level of tech investment, you also needed a massive operation on the other side. And it's hard to do both at the same time. And that's why when we acquired the tech, so I was at Flexport when we acquired the technology after that all wound down, decided to relaunch it purely as a tech platform that we would bring to market for brokers and carriers. And that is ultimately what DAT acquired. What Convoy allows for, and the beauty of that is all that investment that they spent building it out in a brokerage to be a digital brokerage, to be a fully automated brokerage, now is available to any broker and any carrier.
Yeah, it changes everything. And we'll get into more of the details of that in a second. But I don't ever want to give short shrift to the intelligence that I get from DAT. So I used it when I was at a 3PL. My team used it when we could not find truckers for a lane. And that was kind of my sense of it is, hey, we use this tool. We loved it. No complaints. Years later, when I was advising large shippers and I was like $100 million spend, they don't want to just talk about, hey, can you save $50 on the next load? They want to understand, what is the freight market doing? Are we overpaying in general or underpaying in general? And when by the time you're that size, nobody's looking for transactional solutions. It was managed solutions. And I remember when I left the company, they left the engagement, I remember saying this, before I go, I want to make sure we have the DAT trend line on your freight, what the market would pay. And I remember having a meeting about it, and they said, should it be higher or lower? I said, I just as long as it's running parallel. I just want to make sure I'm not wildly overpaying for something. And if the market spikes up, I don't want to find out that am I paying extra to my transportation company, or am I paying extra to the trucking companies? that intelligence is second to none. And by the way, I talked to Jason Miller a lot from Michigan State. I know he loves your data. He references it when we talk.
Yeah. Well, and Ken Adama at DAT is very much out there and talks about it quite a bit. But this is key. Having been on the other side of it, what happened during the pandemic was a lot of shippers, because rates were so volatile, right? To your point, like the market's going to move, and shippers, it's less that like if the market's going up, yes, I'm going to pay more, but am I paying to market or under market? And am I tracking the market? Am I managing this effectively as best as I could? Which is really a question of like, yes, I need a independent source that's going to tell me where the market's at. And there is no better, more reliable source, more trusted source than DAT. And most of these shippers or brokers that integrate, carriers that get into index-based pricing models, as an example, it's DAT who they're looking for that data, because that's the trusted benchmark.
It's kind of almost the same as if you paid a financial planner to help you with your investments. And then at the end of the year, you say, well, what did the market do? What did, and Brennan,
Yes,
I might not be taking all the risk that the market is right now. He said, hey, look, you're a little more in bonds or you're a little more in cash. That's why we didn't hit the market. Okay, just explain. Just tell me what's going on. And you can't do that unless you have data, and not a little bit of data, not data from that trucking company or from that 3PL.
No, you need the whole market view.
And I interviewed Ken Adamo not so long ago, and what is it? You guys have done $1 trillion of transactions. So I don't know how many zeros that is, but it's a lot.